Hey everyone, welcome to this week's webinar. Today we're going to be talking about Social Security benefits for both while you're working and while you're in retirement. No matter where you are in your career right now, this can be helpful to have some takeaways about how we're saving into retirement for Social Security and when to start claiming your Social Security benefits and how to maximize that. So let's dive into today's presentation. Now, as we know, for a self-employed court reporter specifically, you do have to pay double what everyone else is paying on Social Security taxes. So we want to make sure that you can maximize the benefits that you're getting since you got to pay so much extra money compared to everybody else. So what is that amount that you're paying? The reality is that you have to pay 15.3% of your income for both Social Security and Medicare taxes. And this is only going to be on the W-2 income if you're an S Corp. So it's not going to be on everything you make, just what you pay yourself as a salary. But if you're a sole proprietor, then this is going to be on your total business income. Definitely, regardless of which option you're set up as, is going to be a big amount in taxes that you're paying. Whereas the traditional employee-employer relationship, you're only paying half of it. You only have to pay 7.65%, and your employer covers the other half for you. So that's a nice part about working in the courts, for example, or really any type of W-2 position. But since you are on your own, you got to pay double the taxes on this. One thing that people talk about, though, is that it's a catch-22 scenario here where you want to be able to pay yourself a lower salary to save and not have to pay so much self-employment taxes. But the more you lower it, the less you're going to get in Social Security benefits. So we want to know that sweet spot, which is around, I would say around like 75 to 100,000, where you're putting in enough money that you're going to get a really good Social Security benefit, but you're also still going to get tax savings as well. So that's something that you need to figure out and coordinate with your accountant or financial advisor to see how that amount is going to affect you if you are an S Corp and how much you should be paying in W-2 wages to build up your Social Security benefit, and if that's even a priority for you. The way that Social Security is calculated, it's going to be based off your 35 best years, your highest earning years. In order to qualify, you only need to have 10 years of Social Security taxes being paid in, or 40 quarters is basically what they look at. So if you only had 10 years, you would have 25 zeros, and then you would have 10 years of whatever your income is. And so that's really where you end up with a smaller benefit because of all those years that you're not reporting any income and not getting any benefit. This just says here at the bottom that if you did do that and you only had 10 years of no income in 25 working years, then you'd have a 30% lower benefit. So it definitely makes a big difference to be consistently adding money into this. So the big question when you're in retirement or approaching retirement is going to be looking at when to claim. And if you look at the timeline here, there's a couple things you need to think about. Number one is, how long am I going to get benefits for? Number two is, how much am I going to get? So the earliest that you could claim your benefit is at age 62. And at age 62, you're going to get 70% of your full benefit. And your full benefit would be collecting at age 67. So from 62 to 67, your benefit will slowly go up each year on how much you'll get, depending on when you claim, all the way up to age 67, where you get your full benefit. But there's a kind of a weird rule where if you wait 3 more years, you get 8% extra per year that you wait, coming up to 124% of your full retirement benefit. So it's a little confusing. I don't know why they don't just make age 70 your full benefit and age 62 be the low point, and you just go from there. But these are the 3 main numbers that people look at is, am I going to take as soon as I can, full retirement age, or am I going to wait till the last second at age 70? The break-even point between these plans is typically between 78 and 82 years old. So what I mean by that is that if you start at age 62 versus 70, you get 8 years more of benefits, right? So you're collecting earlier, but you're not getting as much money. So you're going to start out right here and you're going to have this slow trajectory going up of how much money you've received in Social Security benefit. Compare that to age 70, where you're going to start here right later in life, but it's going to be much steeper trajectory because you're getting much more benefit. So the point where it doesn't matter which plan you chose, you ended up receiving the exact same amount of money is around age 78 to 82. So that's something you need to think about is what's the longevity look like in your family and how long do you think you're going to live? It's an impossible question to answer, but that's something to think about as far as if I'm going to live longer than 82, then it's a no-brainer. We want to wait. If not, then I want to collect earlier. Just some things that you can think about when you're thinking about claiming your Social Security benefit. So one thing that you need to keep in mind as a court reporter, and this is very common because court reporters typically work later in life than a lot of other professions. A lot of the court reporters I work with, they don't want to just stop working when they hit age 60 or 65. They want to keep going and maybe not take as many jobs, but still work here and there. And that's great. You're going to bring more income in, and that's going to increase your income in retirement, which is really nice. The downside is that before you reach full retirement age, so age 67 on what I showed from the last slide, if you make more than $22,000 per year and you've already started collecting Social Security benefit, they're actually going to take dollars away from you. So every $2 that you make over this $22,000 a year, they're going to take $1 of your Social Security income away from you. So in that sense, if you're still bringing in a lot of money and you're still working a decent amount, you're working and bringing in income, then you're taking away from Social Security. And essentially, it made no sense to start collecting Social Security early and get income earlier because you're not really going to get much benefit, right? They're just going to be taking it all back away from you. So we got to be very careful with this and when you want to actually stop working completely before you start turning on Social Security. The nice part is once you do hit that full retirement age, that age 67, all this goes out the window. You can work as much as you want and make as much money as you want, and they're not going to take away from your Social Security benefits. So age 67 to 70 is going to be the sweet spot if you're going to continue working full time, later in life and keep going well past in your 60s. Another thing to think about is going to be your spousal and survivor strategies, right? So it's not as simple as we should both follow the same strategy between your partner and you. You may want to adjust your strategies based on what options you have available and how much you've built up in Social Security benefit. So one option that you have is that either spouse can take 50% of the other spouse's benefit if it's higher than yours. Now, they do have to be claiming, so they have to be already earning their monthly. But let's say they're earning $5,000 a month and your benefit's only $2,000 a month. You can take half their benefit, which is $2,500. So now between the whole household, you guys are bringing in $7,500 in Social Security benefit. So that's a nice option that may work for you. Also, when one of the spouses passes away, you get 100% of the higher benefit. So it sounds like things are staying the same, but they're not. So we got to be careful about this. This is a very important retirement planning piece is what happens when one spouse dies, because you do get the step up in benefit, but you lose the other benefit. So let's go back to my example where one spouse is earning $5,000, one is getting the half benefit, right? The $2,500. And let's say the spouse that was earning more passes away, right? So that $5,000 is gone. And then the spouse that's still alive, they get to jump up. So now they're getting $5,000 as their monthly benefit, but they lose their $2,500 they were getting before. So now instead of bringing in $7,500, right, $5,000 and $2,500, you lose the $2,500 and now you're just getting the $5,000. So it is still going to be a drop in income having a spouse pass away from your Social Security benefit. You just may get a step up if your spouse was getting more than what you were getting for your specific benefit. So that is going to be a loss of income and something that you need to have a plan around. So we want to coordinate claiming in the best way possible. And one of the ways to do that, I'll just skip down to this note here at the bottom, is that you would want your highest earner to delay and potentially have your lower earner start pulling early. For example, your higher earner could wait as long as possible so that they're getting the biggest benefit possible and they start collecting at age 70. Then the other spouse could do whatever they want, but they could collect early and start collecting right at 62, right? And start getting those benefits. And then if the higher earner passes away first, then that's a bigger amount that the lower earner gets to jump up to. So it's basically promising that you're going to get the most out of Social Security because either the higher earner stays alive and they get that larger benefit for their whole life, or they pass away first and that larger benefit that you waited till 70 for gets passed on to the surviving spouse. So it's really maximizing that biggest benefit that you can get. The only other thing to mention here is that if you were married for over 10 years and got divorced, then something to think about is you have the option of receiving your ex-spouse's benefits as well. And you could receive their benefit and it doesn't affect them at all. Their benefits all stay the same. It's more just a perk that you get where if they were a higher earner, there could be a higher benefit that you could receive there. So again, just another thing to think about comparing to what you could get on your own, what you could get through their benefit, and decide what makes the most sense. So once you start collecting Social Security and you've spent all these years paying into Social Security, now they just decide we want more taxes back, even though you already paid tax to be in this program, right? I don't really get it, but basically what happens here is if you make more than these income numbers I'm showing you, then your Social Security actually becomes taxable income. So you worked all your career, you paid your Social Security taxes, then you start collecting Social Security benefit, then now you have to pay income tax on that Social Security benefit, right? And again, this is why sometimes when people are talking about having a lower W-2 takes away from your Social Security benefit, I'm like, yeah, but you're getting a lot of tax benefits and Social Security is extremely tax heavy. So it may not make sense to increase your salary to put more money towards Social Security. So just something to think about, but each person's different. So if you want your Social Security benefits to be completely tax-free and you're a single filer, you need to show income of under 25,000. Now remember, your retirement accounts, if they're pre-tax and you take money out of those pre-tax retirement accounts, that counts as income. So you can't take more than 25 or 32,000 if you're married from pre-tax retirement accounts without going over here and having these taxes. So very easy to have Social Security become taxable. If you're between these numbers, 25 to 34 or 32 to 44, then 50% of your benefits are taxable. So an easy way to think about this is, let's say back to my example, you're getting 5,000 a month from Social Security. 2,500 of that 5,000 would be taxable income for you. And you have to pay the income taxes on that 2,500. Now, lastly, most of you will be in this bucket just because court reporters make good money, they have good lifestyle, and they're probably going to want to live off of more than $34,000 or $44,000 a year. You're going to have to pay taxes on 85% of your Social Security benefit. So again, back to my example, doing the math, that's about like $4,200 of your $5,000 monthly income is taxable income. So that's going to be like $48,000 you made off Social Security that you're going to have to pay taxes on at the end of the year. So some mistakes that you want to think about. Number one, if we're trying too hard to cut corners, saving money, and we're not putting into Social Security, right? Again, this is the dilemma of lowering your income to get better tax savings or raising your income to get more Social Security benefits. So we got to find where's the balance there. Claiming at 62 because you're worried about Social Security running out of money. The reality is that's not going to happen, right? Social Security is a benefit for a lot of people. That's really their only lifeline and their only retirement income that they're going to get. So the program will never go away. Too many people rely on it. What is running out is the surplus funds. Basically, think of it as their retirement account for paying out everyone for Social Security. I believe the math is that if that account went to zero, just all the revenue that they're making from everyone paying Social Security taxes every year would be able to afford paying everyone a benefit of around 75 to 78%. So essentially, the worst case scenario is like a 25% cut in your Social Security benefit because they'll still have all the revenue that they're getting from everyone paying their Social Security taxes. So don't worry about it running out. Just potentially, if you want to worry about it, just worry about it going down a little bit. But at the end of the day, that really shouldn't make a difference on whether you claim at 62 or 70. You want to just claim at whatever is going to make sense based on all these other things I've mentioned. Also, you want to check your earnings record and see what's going on there. Make sure everything's being entered accurately. So you can go on the Social Security website, create an account, and you can see what got reported as income for every year and see how you're stacking up for what your Social Security benefit's going to be. So you want to make sure those numbers are accurate and your income was reported correctly. We want to make sure we're planning with our spouse, like I mentioned, looking what are the options of taking one person's benefits later, one earlier, what is going to be the best fit for you. So making sure you're coordinating with your spouse and not just thinking about yourself and your own benefit, but we want to work together. And then also thinking about the taxation. So a lot of tax stuff here, but right, thinking about if you're working and it's going to take away from Social Security benefit, you may want to wait to start claiming. When you do claim and start collecting, then are there ways that we can avoid having all your Social Security income being taxable? And so just figuring out different tax strategies along the way throughout your retirement. So integrating this with your retirement plan, like I mentioned, typically for most people, the break-even age is around 82. And it's likely these days that you will have a life expectancy past this, where it would make sense to wait till the last minute to claim at age 70. So a lot of people will live off of retirement accounts and savings from 62 to 70, or still working. You can even take part-time jobs, which a lot of court reporters like to do, and that helps supplement retirement. And then eventually fully claim at age 70 to get the most benefit that you can and the most income that you can. You know, it's worth it to potentially give up some of those years at the beginning, take more money out of those retirement accounts and spend them down a little bit more than you wanted and get more Social Security benefit later on. And then lastly, we talked about at the beginning, but it's a 24% increase, which is pretty big by waiting those 3 extra years from 67 to 70. So 8% jump each year. So pretty good deal to wait a few more years to get your benefit. So what is the action plan going forward from here? I would always recommend that you set up your Social Security website and log in if you haven't done that yet. You can see, like I said, your income that you've done so far and how you're tracking so far. Download that earnings record and calculate. You can do like a quick calculator and it'll show you based on what you've done so far, if you kept a similar pace, what benefits you would get in retirement. So it's good to know what you're tracking towards. If you're 5 years or less from retirement, you want to start running different scenarios and see what's possible, see what your spouse is eligible to get as well. And then also, if you're planning to retire early, you need to plan for the Medicare gap as well. So, and what that is, if you retire at 62, you aren't going to get any Medicare help till 65. And maybe you were deducting your health insurance off of your business income and you're not doing that anymore. So there could be some extra insurance costs that we need to think about before Medicare kicks in. Once you are ready to claim, we want to apply 3 months early. Give yourself plenty of time to get approved and get all that organized. Set up tax withholding. If you know you're going to be paying taxes on that income, you can just have taxes withheld like a normal paycheck. And that way you don't have to worry about it and set money aside for that tax bill. And if you want, keep working part-time income, working a few jobs here and there. It is going to cause you more taxes and maybe take away a little bit from Social Security. But big picture, it's going to improve your retirement plan to not be spending down your assets and continuing to grow them instead and using income to help supplement. If you need some free resources, you can always check out the socialsecurity.gov estimator. You don't even have to set a login for that. You can just plug in some general numbers to get an idea. There's a bunch of online claiming calculators to run different scenarios as well. And then if you do want to set up your account portal, go to this myssa.gov website and you can set up your own login and see all of your own personal info on there. If you want to talk further about Social Security claiming, whether you can maximize it with your spouse, how to use the retirement assets leading up to claiming Social Security, or really any questions around this, feel free to reach out to me and we can set up an initial consultation. We do a complimentary review of your retirement plan to see how you're tracking based on what you're currently doing. And I'm happy to share all that stuff with you for free to at least give you a general idea of what you're doing so far and show some areas where we may be able to help you improve. Other than that, just keep in mind you're paying more than the average person with this 15.3% tax rate. We want to make sure you maximize this benefit, right? We want to get out of it with our S Corp filing, but we also want to make sure that we maximize the money we do have to put into that plan. So let's make sure we take the most out of this plan that we can. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to comment on these videos. And other than that, have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you all next time.